According to the new atheists, God is a delusion and religious faith is harmful. But when you look more closely, how good are the arguments they use? One of the best known arguments for God is the design argument. Many things in the natural world look as if they've been designed for a purpose. In the 19th century, William Paley said that if you were crossing a heath and you found a watch on the ground, you wouldn't think that it was there just by chance. Everyone recognises that it had a designer who made it for a purpose. And, he said, every manifestation of design which existed in the watch exists in the works of nature, with the difference, on the side of nature, of being greater or more, and that in a degree which exceeds all computation. Paley wrote these words in 1802. When Charles Darwin's theory of evolution was published 60 years later, it seemed to do away with the design argument. It showed how things that looked as if they were designed could arise naturally. So has evolution killed off the design argument for God? Michael Poole is a visiting research fellow in science and religion at King's College, London, and for 16 years he taught a master's degree course on science and religion. We asked him, has evolution destroyed the design argument?
No, it's just changed it. Of course, most people know William Paley's argument that if you looked at the universe, just like looking and finding a watch upon a heath, you would say, well, look, this has been designed and so on. But when evolutionary theory came out, then it was obvious that it was something that was built into the system. And there's no reason, of course, why God shouldn't use evolutionary processes to accomplish the adaptation of organisms for their particular environments. Professor Howard Van Til in the United States has talked about the functional integrity of creation, by which he means that the creation is made to work. It doesn't need God intervening, poking in the tweezers every now and again in order to do it. He made it complete and he made it work. And it's got a built-in mechanism, the process that we call natural selection, whereby those things that are less fitted to survive and to reproduce don't do so. So God can just as easily use a built-in process which depends upon things like the transmission of genetic information from generation to generation to accomplish this. And indeed, one can argue that it's a lot more economic in terms of time and energy. That's the way of putting it. It's a lot more economic than having everything separately made to conform to a particular adaptation within its environment.
So for Michael Poole, evolution is just the process that God uses to achieve his purposes. But if you say that God made the world, doesn't that just push the question back to, who made God? Doesn't it involve an infinite regress?
The idea of an infinite regress only applies when we have time and space. If you point to one event and say, well, look, that was caused by an earlier event, you bring time into it. But there is no time in eternity from which creation took place. Time and space is part of the created order. That's not just a theological idea, that is an idea that is current in physics today. And God being outside of time isn't held by this. You can't take a time argument and keep pushing it back and say, therefore, who made God? Because the very concept of God is of an uncreated beginner of everything. And if you don't accept that, then you're not talking about the same thing as the Christian is talking about when he talks about God.
So for Michael Poole, God is outside of space and time. It doesn't mean anything to apply the ideas of space and time to God. And it doesn't mean anything to ask, who made God? And evolution is the process that God uses to achieve his purposes. The argument from design is not as dead as the new atheists would like us to think. If you want to find out more about this and other bad arguments used by the New Atheists, we recommend Michael Poole's book, The New Atheism: 10 Arguments That Don't Hold Water.